Alright, you beautiful Python developers, welcome back. In this video, we are going to learn how to reshape a multi-dimensional array, also known as a matrix, and how to horizontally and vertically stack an array. You probably don't understand what stacking is currently, but as we go further along the video, you'll understand a little bit more. But for right now, let's focus on reshaping an array or a matrix. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a simple array, np.array. And inside that, I'm just going to put a couple of values. So over here, you can see that this is a one-dimensional array with just one row and 4 columns. And if you print this out, it will somewhat look like this. Now, what if we want to convert this array that we have over here, this one-dimensional array, into a 2x2 array that has 2 rows and 2 columns? That is basically known as a reshaping an array or a matrix. So reshaping is actually pretty easy. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create another variable b, and over here I'm just going to write e.reshape, and then I'm just going to write the shape that we want. So I'm just going to write 2, 2, and then we're just going to print out the value of b. So let's play this, and you can see that our simple one-dimensional array has been converted into a 2x2 array. One thing that you have to keep in mind is that the number of elements in the initial matrix, that is A, the initial matrix is currently A, has to be equal to the multiplication of the row and column that are given over here. So for example, the number of elements is 4, and inside this B shape, you can see that the number of row is 2 and the number of columns is 2. So if you multiply 2 by 2, it's equals to 4. So you can reshape an array only if the condition is met. And I'm just going to copy and paste the condition over here just so that you guys can remember it properly. So make sure that the after shape 1 and after shape 2 in this example is 2 by 2 is equals to row and columns of the before matrix. So you can also think of it as the number of elements, and you can also think of it as row into columns. So for example, in our initial matrix, the number of row is 1 and the number of columns is 4. So 1 into 4 is equals to 4, and over here 2 into 2 is equals to 4. That's why there is no mismatch in shape and no error occurs. So let's take another example. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create another variable called before, and I'm going to create another array over here, and this time we are going to create a two-dimensional array. So inside single brackets, I'm just going to create 1, 2, 3, 4, and then I'm just going to create another array inside this 5, 6, 7, 8. So let's print this before array on a terminal before we try and reshape it, so that we know that there is no error occurring. So you can see that this is a 2x4 array because it has 2 rows and 4 columns. So that means that number of elements over here is 8. So we can reshape it as long as the after array or the after matrix also has the conditions met, that is the after shape dim 1 and after shape dimension 2, that is the row and the columns are multiplied together and they are equal to the number of elements or the row and the columns of before matrix. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create another variable called after, and I'm just going to reshape the before array. So I'm just going to write before.reshape, and this time let's make it 8, 1. So you can see that the number of elements over here is 8, and we are reshaping it to 8 by 1 array, that is 8 into 1 is equals to 8, and that is why there is no mismatch in shape and error. And you can also see that the number of rows over here is 2 and the number of columns is 4, so 2 into 4 is equals to 8, and that is why also there is no mismatch in shape and error. So now let's just print out this after matrix so that we can see how it looks. So let's print that. And you can see that our before matrix was kind of like this, and now it is like this. Now let's try and reshape into a different kind of matrix. So currently this is 2x4. So what if we convert it into a 4x2? 4 rows and 2 columns. So let's run this now and see how it looks now. So now you can see over here that this was our before matrix and this is our after matrix. So now let's go on to vertically stacking and horizontally stacking. So what I'm going to do, and obviously all this code is going to be in the description, just look for the GitHub link. So now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to remove all of this stuff from here and add a comment so that you guys know what we are working with. And I'm just going to create quickly 2 arrays over here. The first one, the V1 is the first array and the V2 is the second array. So we are basically going to try and vertically stack both of them. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create another variable over here, V3. And I'm just going to write np.vstack. So this is the method that is used to stack different arrays together. And what you can do inside this is let's just write v1, v2, and you'll be able to see that both of these arrays stack together. So that now you understand what basically stacking is. So let me just remove this and run this again, print out this v4 variable, and let's just call it v3 instead of v4, and let's run this. and you'll be able to see that our matrix is now 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8. So it is basically stacking both of them. But what we can also do is we can also add another v1 v2 and it's gonna stack both of them again. So let's run this and you can see that they have been stacked again. Cool thing about this is that you can stack whatever you want. You don't need to put v1 before, you don't need to put v2 before. You can stack whatever you want, how many times you want. So I'm just gonna stack v2 a couple of times, and then I'm just gonna stack v1 once and maybe once more. So now it's gonna be basically a huge array. So you can see over here, so this is where vertical stacking comes in a little bit handy. You don't need to create a huge array. You can just use two arrays if they have similar values and use them to vertically stack them. So horizontal stacking is also kind of the same thing. So what I'm gonna do is also I'm gonna add another comment over here, and I'm just gonna copy this from here. So let's just copy this v3 from here and paste it over here. And instead of v3, let's just call it h3 because this is horizontal stacking. And basically we are going to be doing the same thing with v1 and v2, and let's just print this out, h3, and instead of this v stack we are going to use something known as the h stack. So this basically stands for horizontal stacking, and let's run this and see how it looks. So now you can see, let me just delete this so that the previous statements also get deleted, and let me remove this print statement from here. And now you can see that both arrays have been horizontally stacked. Just to give you guys another example of horizontal stacking, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create another variable called h1. And I'm going to just create initialize, just to remind you guys what we learned in the last videos. We learned how to initialize matrices. So I'm just going to initialize a matrix of ones and zeros. So first we are going to initialize ones, and I'm just going to create a matrix of two rows and 4 columns. And then I'm just going to create another one of zeros. Let's call it h2, and instead of ones we want zeros, and this time we are going to create of 2 by 2. Let's print both of them just to see how they look. So h1, and let's also print out h2, and let's run this so that you guys can see what it looks like. So this is the h1 and this is the h2. Now we want to horizontally stack both of them, so you already know how to do that. I'm just going to write h3 and hstack, np.hstack, and that's pretty much it. You just basically use h1 comma h2, and let's just print this out just to see how it looks. And you'll be able to see that both of them have been horizontally stacked or not, because they need to be inside square brackets. So let's make sure we add that. And now let's run this again, and hopefully this time there will be no error, and you can see that they have been horizontally stacked. So guys, this is pretty much it for this video. In the next video, we are going to start learning about the mathematics that we can do using Numpy. So yeah, I'll see you in the next video.